Well, good morning. It's good to be here. Uh, I haven't even begun to read in my Bible this morning. Uh, I was seeing some stuff on Facebook on the little movie clips that they have, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has seen them type of clips, but people that have the ability to make art, they do a lot of artwork on Facebook, and they post it, and it gets a million hits. And I see them doing this artwork on the roadway. They will actually go and draw obstacles on the pavement, and it gives you the perception of something being there when all the time it's nothing but artwork. The word that I came up with this morning is the word perception. I have a perception of Alaska. I can think about Alaska. I've never been to Alaska, but I can certainly think about Alaska. I happen to have been privileged to go to Venice, Italy, and the perception that I got in Venice, Italy was a poor perception. I got to actually see it firsthand. Just to be totally honest, I wasn't impressed. I just wasn't. I remember seeing the train station when we rode in from our town that we was in, that we stayed in, and we went to visit the big city of Venice. It's really no different than any other city or no other town, even in the U.S. I have a perception of New York, but I've never been there. When I got to Venice, I noticed the amount of garbage that was at the train station and how it just looked. It almost looked thrown away. I mean, I'm just giving you my perception. I've never went anywhere to see an extreme amount of farmland. I've traveled, and no doubt I've seen pictures, but I've never been to Iowa. I've never seen any of the just miles and miles and miles of corn. I have a perception of how that would look, but my perception is only that, a perception. I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I've never been one to leave my house very much, as you can probably tell. But I'd encourage anybody to go on in your dictionary and pull up the word perception and read what the definition is. I looked it up yesterday, but I didn't take the time to write it down because I felt like that everybody, no doubt, has a perception. I had a perception this morning to go and get a biscuit and to have the perception to remember that they're selling biscuits uptown, and I went and got me a biscuit. And I even got a couple biscuits to eat for tomorrow. I had the perception that I wanted to try to get something in the refrigerator today for tomorrow. I was looking out for tomorrow. I might not see tomorrow. It wouldn't really hurt my feelings if I got to eat what I bought for tomorrow or not, you know. I've never been to California. I never seen the Golden Gate Bridge. I've not been one to do a whole lot of travel. I remember going to St. Louis, Missouri, and I told about that in one of my recent videos. I've never been to Niagara Falls. I've never been to Key West, the southern tip of the United States. I never stood on that pinnacle of the lowest landmass on this side of Cuba. I've never seen that. Far as I know, I do not, or maybe can say that I remember ever getting on a passenger train. I don't remember riding a passenger train. I have a perception of me sitting in a passenger train and riding the train. See, I can have perceptions. I can perceive me driving a new vehicle, but I am plumb happy with the vehicle that I have now. As long as it carries me and brings me, then my perception of that vehicle that I have right now is ample for me to travel with. No more than I travel. I wouldn't want to go on a long trip with my vehicle. I would either have to go rent something if I was going to go on a long, lengthy trip. I've never been to Washington, D.C. I've never seen the White House. I've never went to the art encounter. I've never been there before. I heard about it. I even have a perception about it. You know, I can go on and on with the word perception. I want to get back to the drawing that I saw where the person had drew on the concrete a brick wall. And he put it right there at the door, and when the person walked out, they perceived that there was something in the way, and they literally grabbed a hold of the door thinking that there was a fall off right there. And they was grabbing a hold of the door to pull themselves back away, but all the time, it was all concrete. It looked like that there was a barrier. It looked like there was an obstacle. Somebody had drew a barrel-like substance in the middle of the road, and people would literally swerve and go around that barrel, whereas the barrel was part of the pavement. It was a perception that somebody had to paint that to make it look so authentic and make it look so real that it would even change the person's way of looking at things. I've noticed that when people are playing jokes on one another, that they will be walking and they would actually step over something. And it would give the impression that there was something in the way of where they was walking, and all these other people were sitting on the park bench looking at why are they stepping over something. They had full vision that there was nothing there, but yet they would step over it given the perception that something was there. I guess what I'm trying to say is many people, no doubt, can have a perception of hell. But see, even if you have a perception of hell, it's really not a perception. Now, to many, it would be a perception because they don't believe that it's real. But there's a man that we read about, and there's no need in me turning to it, but I've looked at his story many times about the man that was the rich man in Luke chapter 16. That man died along with a man named Lazarus. He died. And he was taken by the angels into Abraham's bosom. To me, Abraham's bosom is a picture of heaven. Down in this life, you could actually say it was a perception of heaven. But see, this man named Lazarus had more than a perception. He believed in God. Even though that he had all kinds of problems and issues, he believed in God. And so therefore the angels came and took him to the place that was not a perception. He took him to a place that was for real. That when that man Lazarus got to that place that was called the place of freedom, the place that was like the picture of heaven, which is called Abraham's bosom, that man never had another care in the world. The Bible didn't never say anything about what Lazarus thought about when he got to Abraham's bosom. See, we don't know all that man named Lazarus is experiencing today far as his place of the place of heaven. I happen to believe that place of heaven is not a perception today. Now, his carnal body has been buried in the earth somewhere. Talking about Lazarus, his carnal body was disposed of, but the angels come and took his spirit man to that place of Abraham's bosom, which the place of Abraham's bosom is not a perception. It just so happens that the rich man also died and was buried, the Bible says. But the Bible says that he lifted up his eyes being in torment. The Bible actually uses the word torments with an S. Now, it's hard to see a perception of Abraham's bosom. I can only imagine what Abraham's bosom is like. But the Bible tells us that we also can have a perception of the place of torment. It's a place that a person does not want to go. But yet there's a lot of people that has a perception of heaven, but they don't think it's real. Many people have a perception of hell, and many have a perception of heaven. But if all you have today is a perception, then the likelihood is you was never born again to the point that all you're going to see is the perception of hell until you die. The time comes that when you die, it's no longer a perception. The rich man is in the place that is no longer perception. He's with the Lord. He's in the picture of Abraham's bosom, which is a picture of peace. It's hard for me to fathom a picture of peace. But you know, looking on it from a perception, I don't want to go to that place of torment. I might not ever see San Francisco. I might not ever travel to Washington, D.C. I may never go to Niagara Falls. I may never ever get on another airplane again. The first time I got on an airplane, I went to Italy. The first time that I ever flew a day in my life, I had a perception of that airplane. The perception that I got was when I got inside that tube and I held my wife's hand. This is, and I'm just being truthful, this is just what I thought. What the hell am I doing here? And I'll be honest with you, it was frightening because I could look ahead and see people nonchalant, reading TV guides, brushing off the perception of failure. I felt that airplane started going down the runway, and I could feel the unlevelness of the runway, and I could feel that plane lift. And I had the perception that I was now off the ground, and there was nothing I could do but to hang on for the ride. I did not even want to look out the window. I didn't even sit by the window. I had a perception of danger. And I asked myself, why am I here? When we got to New York, we had to literally run to catch our flight to Italy. We got on that plane and I had a little bit of a perception of what that plane ride was going to be. But the only difference is when that pilot gunned the gas to go down the runway, my head hit the back of the neck rest. and we was going down that runway. And 9 hours later, we was in Italy. I had a perception of that flight. And again, I might not have any other perception of anything else. I remember going to St. Louis and seeing the circle, the arch is what they call it. I never went into it. I saw it from a distance. I've got a perception of what that arch is like. I don't think I would ever attempt to go up in it. I did get to go to a NASCAR race at Daytona. That's no longer a perception. I never cared about going back, honestly. Never cared anything about going back to it. I did have one thing right. When you have a perception of a NASCAR race, you better be looking at the cars that are going around, because if you see a wreck, you won't see it again. Because the wreck happens in a split moment, and if your eyes is not watching, you won't see it. You'll see the aftermath. You'll see it after it gets done, but you won't see it live with your vision. So I had a perception, but the perception that I get watching it on television is a whole lot more authentic, because it puts you closer. It puts you in a better perception. So no, nobody might ride on the sidewalk where I live. Nobody might end up making a bridge to make it look like there's an obstacle that is in the way. But I'm glad that heaven is not a perception. I'm glad that I believe today that heaven is as real as my camera is looking at my camera. I believe that heaven is that real. And I also have a perception that hell is that real as well. And the Lord, I just believe He wanted me to come and talk into the camera. I know I didn't read no Bible very much, but I told the story about the rich man and Lazarus, that they are both living in real life. They're not living a perception. If the rich man could come today and talk to us, he would tell us, Ken, torment is not a perception. It is the real deal. If we could interview Lazarus, and God would allow Lazarus to come and talk to us, I believe that Lazarus would say, Kenneth, this place that I'm at today is the real deal. I just want you to know that if you think that heaven and hell is just a perception, don't wait to find out, because it might be that you might be sadly mistaken, and there's nothing you can do about it then. Elderly ministry is how you get a hold of me. If you want to talk to me about salvation, I'd love for you to call. I try to make myself available anytime somebody calls. All I'm asking you to do is leave a phone number. Leave me a number, leave me a name, and look me up. And let me know that you want to talk. And I'll be more than glad to call you back. If you need to know about being born again, I'd love for you to call. You can also go to YouTube. This is the YouTube channel. Just type that in YouTube, and it'll take you direct to my channel. There's about, about 780 videos there that you can look over. Look me up. This is not a perception. This is real. Elderlyministry.com is real. You can go there and get my information, get my cell number, and you can talk to me for real. I appreciate y'all listening. Make sure you got more than a perception. We're going home one day, and I'm looking forward to the perception that I get when I get there in real life, okay? Thank y'all.